Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here with us. This short class is called Coping Strategies. As you all know, we're in a pandemic. In conversations, Ripp and I talked about how nice it would be to have some kind of course where we talk about coping strategies for this time. So we're going past 6 months in this pandemic, and how can we have the best quality of life and adjust to this new time that we're in. We're probably all over it and wish it was over, but it's not over yet. And so we wanted to call in Jennifer Mitchell to talk with us. This class is not intended to be a replacement for therapy, but she's got some wonderful basics for all of us on how to cope with this time and kind of the fatigue and the losses that come along with it. So I'm going to turn it over to Ripp to introduce Jennifer. Even if you might all know her already, he's going to say a few words about why we've asked her to be with us.
Thank you. As Lucy and I were preparing to put this class together, one of the things that we did think was who's a great person in this community and especially in our church to do this. And the person that came to mind is Jennifer Mitchell. Jennifer is a member of this congregation. She's also a doctor and a therapist in this community. And so had some conversations with her and are very excited about this opportunity for her to present to us, some opportunities for us to be able to deal with the stress in our world. So with that, turn it over to Jennifer.
All right, welcome. I am really excited to be able to share a lot of information that I take for granted and sometimes assume that everybody kind of knows and can utilize in their life, and then realize, and I do this all day, every day, and it comes automatically. So it's great to be able to share just some tips of the trade and some ideas about how to cope with what's going on, because this really is a strange time. Coping is tough. And it's ever changing right now. And the novelty is really worn off, right? It's also not often that I'm treating patients and going through the same stressors that they're going through at the same time. So it's even stressful for me. I get it. Life is exhausting. Also, many of the regular strategies that we might use to cope, like going to the gym or getting together with friends, going out to eat, going to church, right? All of those things have been taken away from us. Even music and art venues. If you're not, you didn't think music and art was all that important, we're really now finding out, oh my gosh, I can't just go listen to music. I can't go to the movies, can't go to the museums. And we're bombarded with stressors from all directions, right? We've got the pandemic, which was our primary thought. We've got to deal with the pandemic and what's happening there. But now we have racial unrest. We have a political scene that's causing stress, and we've got natural disasters that kind of keep piling up on top of just the normal daily stressors that we have. And so what I wanted to do today was start with a quote by a woman whose name is Valerie Carr. She is involved in something called the Revolutionary Love Project. But I'd like this quote because it's something to help us kind of motivate to take care of ourselves and to think beyond this moment that we're in, this year, 2020. And what she says is, we will be someone else's ancestors one day. If we do this right, they'll inherit not our fear, but our bravery. And so I want to use this time to talk about how to manage our fear. Fear is everywhere, right? Everything that is facing us is starting to trigger fear and stress and fatigue. And fear sets the stage for a lot of other things too, like grief and sadness and loneliness. Humans, we crave security. We do not like uncertainty, and we're all kind of differ in our abilities to tolerate this, right? Some people are risk takers. They like to get out there and try new things. And if things are a little destabilized, that's okay. It's exciting and new. Other people really don't like uncertainty or randomness at all, that really pushes their button and stresses them out. So I know it's different for everybody, and we all have our different levels that we can tolerate. But I tell you right now, we all have limits. And I think 2020 is stretching everybody right to the end of their limits. It's really pushing us. So what I find is we all like to kind of cope by worrying, right? I think about it, I worry, and I try to, let me read about this problem. Let me try to understand it. Let me talk to people. Let me find solutions. And I'm thinking that if I do all of these things, that I'll be able to control the outcome, right? We're all looking for some control. Well, if you can do all that and get control and make changes, awesome, go for it. Do as much as you can. But if you're doing all of that, trying to get control and find out that, man, I feel miserable. I'm exhausted. I have lost my hope. I don't have any motivation. Then I want you to be able to think about this in a different way and find a better way to cope. So what's the difference between worrying and stressing and having a clinical mental health problem? I wanted to emphasize that up front because sometimes the extent of the stress can lead you to just not be able to function in daily life. I can't get up and get out of bed. I can't take care of my kids. I'm not getting dressed. I'm not doing things that I used to enjoy. When you get to the point where you can't functionally get through a day, I'm going to say that's time to seek outside help. And I know Lucy, Ripp, and I would be more than happy to help you get connected with somebody if that's where you're at. But for the rest of us, and for most of us, most of the time, it's just this chronic stress that we're looking at and hearing and experiencing what seems to be all day, everywhere we look. And we're exhausted, right? Everybody's kind of tired of this pandemic thing. And even psychologists are starting to call it pandemic fatigue, like it's a new diagnosis. So what is that? Well, what we know about our brain is it can only handle so much stress. And once you get to the point where it's getting overloaded, it starts to accommodate the stress. And what we end up doing is just not doing the things that are recommended to us. We just stop doing and we get inert. So we don't want to start believing that what we do doesn't matter or that taking care of ourselves is hopeless. But that's what happens when we get to that max point. Our body starts to shut down and it says, enough, right? There's nothing you can do. It's not going to make any difference, but it does matter. And here's why. Your body keeps the score of what's going on and it always wins. And so we've got to start paying attention to our body. So one of the most important things I wanted to let people know is that we can impact this. We can actually do things that start to change the way our body responds to stress. And here's how. What we know is that God wonderfully made us. We have this autonomic nervous system. If you studied biology, go back to your high school biology days, autonomic nervous system has two parts, sympathetic and a parasympathetic, right? What do those do? Well, our sympathetic system is the one that's our emergency response system. When we are faced with danger, this thing kicks us into overdrive and gets us ready to fight or run. And you probably heard that, the fight or flight response, or sometimes you hear fight, flight, freeze. Well, what is that? So imagine if you were caveman, cavewoman walking down a trail and a lion jumps out. And if I had the audio, I would scream right now, rah, make a big lion noise and scream. But we all know what that startle response is, right? Our heart rate goes up. I kind of can't catch my breath. I get a knot in my stomach. I don't know what to do. I really can't think because your body is hulking you up. I always tell the little kids that I see when they have anxiety, you're just getting hulked up. Your body wants you to fight or run, right? I feel like I walk outside and the coronavirus is going to attack me, right? But it's not. The things that we're facing right now are not lions and tigers and bears, oh my, right? They're things that we're thinking about and we know and we hear and we see, but unless you're actually involved in a riot or in a hurricane or have the coronavirus, they're just things that are out here attacking us as if they are lions. That's the only thing our body knows to do. God made us to respond to fear and danger with that response. The problem is humans like to think about it and hold on to it. If we were zebras out in the jungle or out in the plains and a lion's coming after us, man, I kick into an overdrive, I run, I either get to safety or what? I'm dead. But once I get to safety, this whole system turns off. Our problem is that we don't turn it off. And so what I want to help you learn is how to turn that system off using the other half of it, which is your parasympathetic system. So what does that one do? Well, the most important thing that it does in terms of pandemic is that it gets our immune system kicked back on. When we get stressed out and aroused, our immune system, our immune response goes to sleep. And we don't need that to happen. And if you're under chronic stress, it can do all kinds of stuff. You can gain weight, you can get increased blood pressure, it can affect, if you have diabetes, it can make you pre-diabetic, it can make diabetes, it makes everything worse. Staying in that stress response makes everything worse. And so what we need to do is learn how to get the other half of it to come back in. And that's what I wanted to teach you, some little things that you can do to kind of get your body back down to normal. The first thing and the easiest thing is to breathe. We all breathe, and there's a rhythm to breathing. We're all breathing together at the same time right now. And so one of the things that we know, psychologists know, scientists know, is that the way we breathe and the way we sit actually changes the way our body works. And it's fascinating. So the first thing I want to teach you is something called the calm reminder. CALM, which stands for chest, arms, legs, mouth. Uncross them all. Open your mouth and just sit back. So everybody can do that right now as I'm talking. This is even better. Just put your arms up and sit back. What that does is it tells this part of my brain that's looking for me to be in trouble that I'm not in trouble, right? My heart's exposed. I'm not trying to get small and cover up and protect myself. I'm good. I got this. And so if you sit like this for 2 minutes, your body actually changes physiologically. It stops kicking out stress hormones and it starts giving you the hormones that help you rest, relax, and repair. So this other side is, one side is called the fight or flight. The other side is called rest and restore, or rest and repair, or rest and digest. There's all little ways to remember it. So just by sitting like that for 2 minutes will change your body. You may even feel a little tingly sensation. Yep, that's your body shifting itself. Now, if you sit like this, that's all Linda, put her hands down, right? What do we do when we get stressed out? We put our hand up by our face, we cover our neck, we close up, we get in that fetal position. But what that's telling our brain is that we're in danger. And so this part of my brain that recognizes what my body is doing goes, uh-oh, she's in trouble. And the only thing it can do when I'm in trouble like that is to give me adrenaline and cortisol and noradrenaline and make me feel like a jittery mess. I don't want to feel that way all the time. So one of the easiest things you can do is just notice how you're sitting. And when you find yourself getting small and tight, open up and take a big breath. The other thing with breathing is that breathing lets our body know that we're doing okay also. If I'm breathing hard and fast, again, what's my brain thinking? Oh, she's in trouble. And this fight or flight response pumps me up that I feel like I need to run and fight or hit somebody or yell or scream. It makes us irritable and edgy all the time. The problem is it also exhausts us. It's like running a mini marathon all day long. I don't want to feel like that. And I really have to watch it at work because I get excited and I'm intense and it's all day long. And if I don't sit back throughout the day, slow my breathing down, I get to the end of the day and I'm like, I just want to go home and fall asleep. So I can tell you that I practice this stuff all day long. So how to do breathing. Here's another one. Lay back like you were, sit back, Put one hand on your chest, put another hand on your stomach, and take a big breath and notice what moves. Typically, when we breathe, what's moving? Our chest is moving up. I'm going to sit up so you can see me. We move when we go. I tell people, take a deep breath, and that's what I see. Big breath. Well, that's the fight breath. That's the fight or flight breath. We don't want that one. We want to leave our chest down, breathe in, and poke your stomach out. So see if you can take a deep breath, don't move your shoulders, and stick your gut out. And do it for about a count of 4. Ready, go. And out. Breathe in and feel your stomach poke out. And let it go. What we call that is diaphragmatic breathing. All of you singers know about breathing from your diaphragm. The rest of us hardly ever do it. But again, it's another technique that will slow everything down. It'll turn that emergency system off. What we're trying to do is overpower what our mind is responding to by telling our body to do something differently. The tip that I want people to remember about diaphragmatic breathing is something called 4 square breathing. Breathe in a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, and during that count, drop your shoulders, relax everything, let it out, sink into your chair or your bed, hold it for another 4 seconds, and just keep making that little square. If you find you can't do it for 4 seconds, start with 2 or 3 and build it up. And what you'll find is after a couple of minutes, you'll get something called the relaxation response. And that's when you can feel your body settling back to normal. And the more you practice it, the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's not magic. It doesn't work like magic the first time either. So a lot of times people say, oh, I've tried that breathing. Okay, you have to retrain your body to listen to your breathing. So don't expect it to be like a miracle drug the first time you do it, but practice it throughout the day and notice if at the end of the day you're not as exhausted. Those are probably my 2 favorite techniques for just getting our body back to an even playing field so that it can rest and it can restore and it can kick my immune system back on and restore that immune functioning. Especially now when we've got this virus going around, I want my body to be ready to fight that, not to fight like run and fight. I want the inside of my body to be ready to fight disease, not me fight like I'm going to punch it when I walk out the door. So be calm, breathe, and the last one is use all of your senses. Everybody remember what their 5 senses are. This goes back to kindergarten, right? Sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. There's an exercise you can do called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. Start with any sense that you want. I'm going to say start with sight. Look around you and notice 5 things. Just say them to yourself. I have a stuffed animal laying on the couch. I have dog hair on my carpet. The sun is shining through my window. I have my coffee pot still going. And I can see you all on my computer, right? So I'm noticing 5 things. Maybe listen for 4 things. Pick another sense. What are 4 things that you hear? I can hear cars. I don't know if you can hear my dog barking, but I can hear my dog barking every now and then. Sometimes I can hear the ringing in my own ears. I can hear some car noise. If you can't hear anything, make a noise and hear it, right? Create a sound. So sight, sound, touch. Find 3 different things and touch them. Notice what that sensation is like. I can feel my cold glass with water in it. I can feel my bottom sitting in my soft chair, right? I can feel my own fingers. So see something, hear something, touch something, smell something. Go around, smell a candle. Smell your hand if you got nothing else to smell. Smell your breath. Smell your hair. We can always find something to smell. So smell a couple of things and then taste something. Find something and taste it. If you have nothing to eat, lick your finger and taste it. If you haven't been out and you've washed your hands, right? Don't do that when you're out in public. But yeah, find something to taste. And while you're using those senses, really pay attention to them. And what that does is actually turns your body to the present moment and takes you out of this worrying. And it has the same impact as those other two exercises. It settles your body down. It takes you out of that emergency response system and brings you to the present. Hang on just a second. My notes just got closed off on my computer, so I'm just bringing them back up. So as a reminder, be calm, chest, arms, legs, mouth. Breathe. Think about the rhythm that we're breathing, that everybody's breathing, that we're all in this together, and that we can change our breathing to help our body calm down. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, use all of your senses. If you're breathing and sitting calm, think about what you're doing. I'm breathing in to tolerate my discomfort. I'm not trying to make these things go away. So I never want people to think I'm just discounting all of the stuff that's going on in the world. I'm really not. But for these few moments throughout the day, I want my body not to fear it or feel like I have to run away from it and hide. I want to breathe through it. And sometimes I'll say, I want to breathe God into it. So you can incorporate faith practices into all of these as well. I want to breathe God into my life, into my mind, into my heart, and help me to tolerate and handle what's going on around me. I have a few other, a little bit funny things that you can do also. So stop doom scrolling. If you haven't heard that word, I love it. Stop doom scrolling. We all do it. I catch myself doing it. I go through and I start scrolling, and then I find something, and there you go. You're off and running. And I'll tell you what, everybody that controls social media knows that we do it because they're tracking it. And once you start doom scrolling, guess what comes up? More of the same. So try to stop yourself from doom scrolling and find some happy news and scroll it. Because guess what else will show up on your computer and on your feed? Happy news. So stop doom scrolling. Watch out for setting expectations. One of the things that researchers are finding right now is that people are more resilient when they don't say, man, I'll be fine when I get back to church. It'll be fine. It'll be all over in October or November or December or March or April, right? It never, don't set that expectation for yourself that things will be fine when. What happens when we do that is we're disappointed over and over and over, and it triggers that stress response because we fear that it's never going to get better. So what to do instead? Roll with it. It's here. It's here to stay. Let the people who are working on it work on it, right? Let them take care of the things that we have no control over. Set your mind to being able to tolerate what's going on and to wonder about it. We're going to talk about that at the end. But be curious about what's going on, but roll with it. It's here for a while. So be careful about saying, I'll be fine when. And the last one is change the way you talk about the pandemic. I'm so tired of hearing the words social distancing. We need to social distance. No, we don't. Honestly, we don't. We need to physically distance, not socially distance. We need to distantly socialize. We need to keep having contact with people. we have to physically distance from each other to maintain safety. In many situations, that is the right thing to do. But I hate that we call it social distancing. No, we were physically distancing ourselves from each other. Don't socially distance yourself. Distantly socialize. So I encourage you all to start using a different vocabulary. Distantly socialize, but physically distance. Control what you can. Let go of the things that you can't. We've all heard that before, the serenity prayer. Don't let your mind convince you that things don't matter. And when it's trying to, work on your body to convince your mind that what matters is what you're doing. Because your mind and your body and your mind and your body are going back and forth fighting this battle within us. Let's try to settle that down. I want to kind of break for a moment and see if anybody has questions, or if Lucy or Ripp have anything to add.
The only thing that I would add, Jen, is on our noonday prayers, I encourage people to do the breathing at the beginning, and I knew it was a good thing to do. I didn't know the physiological and how that changes us by doing that. So I appreciate you explaining that part of it. That's awesome.
Yes, that was one of the things I was really excited to kind of share. And, of course, ever the nerd about science, there's so many more parts of our body that play a role in this, but I really just wanted to give you a simple overview to do just that thing, so that you know that we do have some control over this, and that God wonderfully made us with this system that knows how to repair itself if we'll let it do it, and not let our mind and media and fear take us in a direction away from what our body naturally does, which is get us ready for danger, to fight and be safe, and then bring us back down so that we can restore our bodies and our minds. So thanks for pointing that out.
It's funny that you just said the marvelous or wonderfully made, because while you were talking, I was thinking about that line in Psalm 139 about your works are wonderful and I know it will. Or I will thank you because I am marvelously made. Your works are wonderful and I know it will. And I just appreciate how you're kind of bringing us back to our bodies. And I don't know about you all, but in my spiritual life, sometimes I forget that I'm a whole person. I'm not just a head and a heart. Like I also have a body, and that God made that body. And so you're a reminder just to breathe and to take care of our bodies through just the basics of sleep and relaxation, and all those things we know to do to take care of ourselves are just as important for our spiritual lives too, because we're whole people and God made us, and God made us wonderfully. So I really appreciate this reminder just to kind of bring in that awareness into our spiritual lives as well.
And a lot of times people struggle with guilt about that. Like, I don't have time. I can't take time. I have all these other things I have to do, and it's selfish for me to stop and do these things. And I think when we look at it physiologically, we realize, oh my gosh, it's not. It's essential. And if we don't, our body literally will keep score and start breaking down. It can't maintain this level of arousal all the time. It's not designed that way. So I think this also gives us permission to not feel guilty or cynical or selfish about what we're doing. This is an essential part of life. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd just like to say thank you, Jennifer. The one thing that I loved what you said was distantly socializing. And it brought to mind a story. Yesterday, we were at the DOS Rec. We go every morning to exercise, and there were a bunch of us in the pool. We swim on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we were all talking about the blessings of this pandemic. And one of the blessings that one came up with yesterday that was really got me to thinking was the fact that we were able to stand there distantly socializing talking to each other, having an actual conversation without our mask on. And what a blessing that is. And
Yeah.
it's distantly, you don't have to not socialize. Even with your mask on, you can certainly
Right.
have conversations. And that is so meaningful because we do, as humans, need to interact with people. We need to have those conversations. So thank you for that. I'll take that back to the pool on Thursday.
Good. Yes, none of this is secret information. Pass it on, share it.
Jennifer, I have a question. How do we help those folks that we might be talking with or praying with who have such anger and frustration over things like the rules? You know, you have to wear a mask, you have to stay 6 feet apart. Some of those things, at least for me, seem like common sense offerings that will help us stay safe until we get through this time. But for some people, those are big boulders put in their path, and they aren't able to cope. And it's, as this goes on, it's getting harder and harder for them. What are some things that we can say to our friends or folks that we are trying to minister to who are experiencing a growing level of anger and frustration? How do we redirect that, I guess?
Yeah, I think without going into anger, because I really love to talk again about anger specifically and grief, because I think those are the other two issues that are pervasive right now. People are getting angrier and they're grieving losses that we can't even imagine, right? The first thing with anger is, I think, to join with that person and validate that you hear that they're angry, and to say, tell me about that. Tell me what it's like to be that angry. Tell me what it's bothering you about that. Like with masks, wearing masks, I ask people to tell me what is it about wearing a mask that bothers them, right? And then I have some set answers. If it's, well, government can't tell me what to do, you know, I have freedom. I said, well, yes, we all do have freedom. We also have some responsibilities. And I remember when they first put in you have to wear your seatbelt and you have to put kids in car seats. I didn't like any of that. I used to ride in the back of my parents' Volkswagen Bug without a seatbelt or anything. I don't like having to change. And so validating that change is difficult and change creates anxiety, and anxiety, again, comes from fear. And then the response to fear is fight or run. There's the anger, right? So you have to know that person is in that aroused state, that there's something that they're fearing. And if we can align with them and find out what that is, oftentimes we can talk about the fear versus just being put off by their anger.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? None?
Is change good for people? I've always viewed change as good. Is that good for us?
I think change is.
I've always just viewed it as a very positive thing that.
Oh, your mic just went off, Shelley.
I just viewed it that there are times that you do have to make changes in your life, and the more you can view them as positive, the better off that change is going to be for you.
I think that's true for most people, but honestly, everybody has a different tolerance to change. I mean, depending on personality and life experiences, change may represent a threat or a loss of freedom versus change is exciting and new and I'm curious about it and it's going to help me grow. A lot of people have experienced change as being a very negative part of their life. And so it becomes something to resist. You know, change is uncomfortable. And oftentimes we have to be uncomfortable before we change, right? I don't change unless something makes me change. I kind of get into a rhythm and a routine. I don't want that to be upset. So inherent in change is this destabilizing experience that we have to go through. And if that makes me so uncomfortable that I can't tolerate it, then I don't want change. So I always try to be sensitive to what people have been through and what change represents to them and try to help them understand that change doesn't equal bad. Change is different and it can be good. But for a lot of people, that's not even on their thoughts at all. They do not want things to change. They're good the way they are, right? This is working. If it's working, don't change it. So there's a lot of myths about change that are out there that we're up against right now that, you know, change represents bad. So good point. I do think change is wonderful, but you have to embrace it and be able to be flexible with it.
Jennifer, I have another question, and you talked a little bit about this very early on, but how can we help our children that are going through some of the same emotions, if not all of the emotions that we are going through as adults? How do we help our kids understand and cope with the issues and the challenges that have come with this pandemic? But do all of the things you've talked about work if we kind of bring it into the child's world?
They do. As a matter of fact, using that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, there is nothing better than to get with a child and just let them lead you, exploring nature, going for a walk, playing with food. Use your senses. It's very easy to bring kids back to that. They naturally go there. They like to play with their food, right? They like to spread their pudding around and make things with it. They like to taste things as they're walking around outside, and we're always like, don't put that in your mouth, right? The best person to be around right now is a toddler because they're living in their 5 senses. I think what happens for kids is they pick up on our anxieties and our fears, and they hear. The problem with children is that they hear through a child's mind, and a child's mind is very egocentric, right? It's all about me. I make the sun rise and set. I'm an important person in the world. And if we're not careful and listen to what they're taking in and what sense they're making of it, we can be feeding them information that's unhealthy. And I'll give you an example. I was talking with somebody who's a substitute teacher, and they were subbing in one of the schools around here, and everybody's masked. The kids are doing really well with masks. They come into my office, they don't even want to take them off. I tell them they can. Look, they like them. This is fine with them. They think it's cool. They have different masks and they're very proud of them. It's not stopping them at all. But what we're finding is that this teacher couldn't understand what the child was saying and said, could you just pull it down a bit so I can hear your name? And the kid panicked, was terrified, just froze. Then I thought, oh no, because we know what's been told, right? You better wear that mask or you're gonna catch the corona. Don't you take that mask off, you're gonna be in trouble. Oh, so somehow we have to find that middle ground that wearing a mask is good and it's preventing us from spreading disease to other people, and it's protecting us a little bit from getting it in, but it's not life or death when you're in a classroom. Keep it on, don't touch your face, wash your hands a lot. But I think what we have to be careful about not doing is terrifying our children. Again, the lion is not knocking down my door. If you have somebody that's COVID that's positive in your household, yes, you are going to be much more strict with that child about the dangers of a disease. But in general, I think we have to be around our kids and normalize that these are just things we do to be safe. Kids understand safety, but not make it, again, kind of what we do to ourselves, not make it life or death. We don't need to be on high alert right now. If we get a tornado siren and then one's coming in our neighborhood, then we go on high alert. And then it's okay to feel that fight or flight response, right? But we don't want to keep our kids in that aroused state either, or they will start having the same health problems that we have as adults. So keeping their day as normal as possible and normalizing these things that we're doing as if, yeah, this is just what we do. We don't get too close, you know, give them their space. I tell kids, keep your fence up, right? Keep your fences up. Don't go inside somebody else's yard if they don't ask you to. So using kind of tips like that to help them understand keeping space, which is a good boundary in general, but to be careful not to terrorize our children.
Thank you.
Good question.
And Jennifer, anything else that you want to add or encourage us as we bring this particular session to a close and get ready to tell a little bit about our next one?
I guess mostly I want people to know that it's okay to have all the feelings. It's okay to be panicked. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be sad. Notice those, but don't live in them, right? Visit them, acknowledge that they're there, and then do some things to help your body settle back down. And we're going to be on this roller coaster for a while, right? It's just going to be with us. And I think knowing that it's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster and being okay, having a lot of different feelings, but being able to feel like I can get my body to settle down amidst all of that is very powerful. I also think knowing that God is in the midst of this, is in me, that nobody can take that away. And if I center myself on God and center my body and know that God is at the center of it, emotionally, spiritually, physically, if I stay centered, I'll be okay. I really will. I'll be okay. Regardless of the circumstances that come, I'm going to be okay. Regardless of who gets elected, regardless of how the numbers go up and down, regardless of hurricanes and global warming and fires, I'm going to be okay. I have a faith that tells me I'm going to be okay, that God is strong enough to get me through this. I really want to focus on letting my body believe that too. Not just saying it, but actually bringing myself to a place of centering where I feel it. I feel okay. And that knowing that I can bring myself to that whenever I want to. So I challenge people to work on that and consider that as being an important part of life.
My response to that is preach it. Hey, one more thing. As we talked about another session, we talked about jumping into wonder, and you had mentioned you had a great quote for us as a potential, I don't know if you have that handy, but sharing a quote with us about wonder and the importance of wonder in all this.
I do. And again, I've got this from, it's a wonderful book called See No Stranger. And it's coming from a woman, Valerie, I mentioned at the start, Valerie Carr, K-A-U-R. She started something called the Revolutionary Love Project. She's a Sikh female. That's her religion is S-I-K-H. But it sounds a lot like when Ripp talks about my cousin, right? Think of everybody as being your cousin. That's their mentality. And she has started this project. She's an activist and lawyer and mom. But this new book that she wrote called See No Stranger had that quote that I read at first. And the one I want to leave us with to set the stage for dealing with anger and sadness and grief is this. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price of love. Anger protects that which is love. And when we think we've reached our limit, wonder is the act that returns us to love.
Thank you so much for your gift today of sharing your experiences and knowledge to help us in coping. I know I'm going to be able to sit back and do this a little bit more and know that that is a really important part of bringing me back down to a physiologically healthy place in my life. And so I thank you for all that you've shared today. We're going to close. Lucy's going to share a piece from the psalm that she had referred to in her response at one point, and then I will close us with the serenity.
And I just wanted to say before we close that if you're watching this on Facebook, we encourage you to comment, submit questions. We're still shaping the next couple of sessions, so tell us what would be helpful. Jen has been so gracious with her knowledge, and we want to make sure we're tailoring these to speak to folks where you are. So please do comment and let us know. And so this, I'm going to read a portion from Psalm 139 because it was just so perfect from the conversation. So as you listen, I just invite you to sit back and uncross your arms and relax and remember that God is here. So breathe in the peace of God as you listen. This is Psalm 139 verses 1 through 13. Lord, you have searched me out and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You trace my journeys and my resting places and are acquainted with all my ways. Indeed, there is not a word on my lips, but you, O Lord, know it altogether. Press upon me behind and before and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain to it. Where can I go then from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I climb up to heaven, you are there. If I make the grave my bed, you are there also. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand will lead me, and your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will cover me, and the light around me turn to night, darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light to you are both alike. For you yourself created my inmost parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will thank you because I am marvelously made. Your works are wonderful, and I know it well.
Thank you, Lucy. And we're going to close with the prayer that was referenced, the serenity prayer. Let us pray. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And as Lucy said, please make your comments here on Facebook and let us know how this is impacting you. See you soon.